like a typical Saturday night in Kris's life, we're going into a precarious position because Kris is going to have to debate on whether or not Pulp Fiction should have won something at the Oscars. So we're talking movies. We're talking who should have won Best Picture in 1995? Forest Gump, Shawshank, or Pulp Fiction? Kris, look at the big brain on Brett.
You picked the most obscure quote. But you know what? I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is, Scott. I also know what film is.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of How'd You Like That Movie? Again, we're doing our countdown into the Oscars, where we're going to be talking about whether Forrest Gump deserved its Best Picture win at the 1995 Oscars, or should it have been the Shawshank Redemption or Pulp Fiction. And before I step off, I again want to say fuck you to the Academy for not including its craft services in its broadcast. Fuck you, fuck you. Only 2 more shows of me telling you to fuck right off. Scott, take us away.
And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon you.
Like, there's no even fucking like segue or anything. It's just like, I'm an Anglican. What is it? It's like, what are those fucking like boxes people stand on? Like what?
Soapboxes?
Yeah, and you're like, I'm on this fucking soapbox. Fuck you, Scotty. Now be nice and take this away.
This is not relevant to my show, but I'm going to be an angry little gnome. Ah. I mean, it is on brand. It is definitely on brand.
It is on brand. Yeah, before we get into the actual film, do you know something that I found interesting while researching these 3 for the Oscars?
How babies are made?
Yeah, I have 3 of them, so I think I know. Do you know Tim Robbins wasn't nominated for his acting in Shawshank?
How can you be so obtuse?
Yeah, it was Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, like not even for Best Supporting, which I thought was like shocking because he is like, you know, a big part of that fucking movie.
Well, and for these, I dug a bit deeper. I went into like, normally I'll do like Oscars and BAFTA, but like I even looked at like the SAG Awards and the Independent Spirits Awards. And you would assume that he would have gotten a nomination, at least at the SAG Awards, right? He's an American actor. Morgan Freeman did get a nomination, but yeah, he didn't get nothing. Fucking butt kiss. So
I think that should be the conversation.
But, yeah, I'm not prepped for that conversation, but I mean, we could do it. So Forrest Gump did win.
Yes.
And the discussion at hand is should Shawshank or Pulp Fiction have been the winner? So yet again, I got a bit fucking into this topic, so I think we should again start with you so that we don't automatically turn it into the Kris show.
Yeah, so this is what I was thinking. Like, I rewatched these films like I have numerous times, right? Like all 3 of these films are films that I would watch over and over again. But now watching all 3 at the same time, I'm personally, I think it should be Shawshank. Like Shawshank, even now, like I think it's AFI like #1 in the last whatever many years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Shawshank itself, in terms of direction, in terms of the acting, and the story itself, I think that one was the more perfect storm out of the 3. Like even now with Forrest Gump, watching it over and over again, there's always little things in terms of the history stuff that you kind of always miss, right? Like, and you always like notice now, like after rewatching it so many times, I just realized, like after this last viewing, was the fact that he was named after technically the founder of the KKK.
Yeah, Nathan Bedford Forrest. And they used to put on their sheets and ride around like ghosts or spooks or something. Well, yeah, because as and by your, I mean the audience, like their understanding of world events, as they grow or change, all of a sudden, yeah, you start being like, oh my God, that's happening. Like, oh my God, there he is at like the first, desegregation of a school in Alabama or whatever, like the whole like raccoons comment and stuff. And you're just like, again, and I think this actually lends a lot of weight to what so let's just get it on the table. So you think that Shawshank should have won?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so I think Forrest Gump did deserve it, and I think it is definitely a competitive race. You definitely threw a curveball, making me have to talk about, really one of my favorite directors, and probably like the film that is his, like, we know Reservoir Dogs, but Pulp Fiction fucking punched above its weight. Like, it's made on an $8.5 million budget, brought in $214 million at the box office. Tarantino becomes a household name. You know what I mean?
Boner alert.
Yeah, well, even in terms of the budget itself, the only reason, like, majority of that budget is just the actors, right?
Yeah.
And the budget was lower up until the end, until they signed Bruce Willis, and he's the one that bumped it up because he was having flops here, like in domestic, but he was still a huge,
doing well in Europe and stuff, right? Well, and they spent a lot of that budget on the Jackrabbit Slims location or set or whatever, right? Like a big chunk of budget was spent on like really making that look like the diner that it is, which it is fabulously done. And again, I'm going to talk about each one of these films.
Yeah, why don't we just say how it is? Like, I chose this just so I could be Zed, you could be Maurice, and I'm just like giving you a saying, like, say it. Say Pulp Fiction did not deserve it. Say there's better movies than fucking and directors than Quentin. Say it.
So unfortunately, the mistake you made is, as much as I love Tarantino, Pulp Fiction is not on my top list of Tarantino films.
What?
So I'm actually very comfortable being more critical with Pulp Fiction. And I wouldn't even say critical. It's not my favorite Pulp Fiction. Like
my favorite Pulp Fiction.
Sorry, it's not my favorite Pulp Fiction. It's not my favorite Tarantino film. So again, like I don't mind having a conversation about why Forrest Gump is a better best picture. All three of these films are fantastic, by the way. Anybody listening, if you have not seen all three of these films, go watch them. They're great.
Do it.
Again, with Quentin Tarantino, we really got a sense of what his style. I would say that the use of, like, he does some of this in Reservoir Dogs, but it's kind of like bumped up. The nonlinear format, again, is flushed out more. Really use of ensemble cast, contemporary music. Again, with bigger budget, you can bring in more music. Again, like you said, the actors there's all these like fairly. Some of them were actually put back on the map. Bruce Willis being one of them, and John Travolta. And then all of a sudden we see
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson hadn't peaked and fallen. Bruce Willis.
This is the one that like fucking put a rocket up his ass.
100%. Yeah, motherfucker. Yeah.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
Which I'm actually surprised your quote wasn't his whole. I thought it was gonna have like a 10-minute like Ezekiel.
You will know that I am your brother. Yeah, that's a long. You're talking about his like Psalms 13 or that quote. Yeah, walk in the valley of the shadow of death or whatever.
I'm trying real hard to be the shepherd.
I thought that's what you were gonna do. I was getting ready to take a nap.
You're like, and we'll return to our regular scheduled program after this announcement. Okay, so I think when it comes to Best Picture, so you did a really good thing last week. And I'm actually really enjoying the format we're doing here, because it's not like good movie versus bad movie. It's like great movies versus great movies. And like, we're in a world of like inches, which is the world I always live in. And so you asked me something last week about why I had picked, Brokeback Mountain. And like I said, like, well, it's big, it's got scope and stuff. And you were like, you pushed me to explain that. And I don't think I did a very good job last week, because I kind of was like, I didn't really know for myself. It was one of those things where it's like, I feel something about a film, but I can't explain the why. And so basically that brings me to like, what is our operational definition of like, what makes a best picture a best picture? So for you, let's start with like, what does a best picture need to even be in the running?
Now,
Like, do you have?
you're asking just me in general, right?
Yeah, you in general. Yeah, not the Academy, not
Yeah.
anything like that. You specifically.
Like me, it's the perfect storm. It's the one film of the year that had that when everything got put into a blender, it's just like it's John Travolta saying goodbye to Uma Thurman, right? Just like mwah. You're just like, it's all it makes, without each piece, this film would not be like, it wouldn't be the same.
Sure.
And it's the ensemble and it's the effort of all of them together. Now, in my opinion, you can have a best picture, but and best actor could be from a different film, because one person could have done, just like fucking like sports. You can have one superstar in one film,
and the team can still lose.
Yeah. Or
I mean, as someone who's Portuguese, you really understand that with Cristiano Ronaldo. So.
Yeah. And do you have anybody that's German that?
No, because we have entire squads that are good. We don't need the German teams. You compete as a team.
Yes. So here's my here's my definition.
How many World Cups? How many World Cups do you guys have?
8. Don't worry. Here's my definition. And we'll use soccer as an example, or football. A best picture should be Manchester City, in which you don't have one individual that's the all-star like a Cristiano Ronaldo or a Messi. It's pieces together that literally are on the same page and can just dominate and take possession for 90 minutes of pure entertainment, and then just keep on driving it in the back of the net. Not one person's the star. And
I finally can make this reference, or the Canadian men's national team in soccer.
Yeah,
the way they're playing right now. Each one of those players, some are good, some are better. I mean, but even without Alphonso Davies, we still hammered the shit out of the Americans, and we beat the Mexicans. So,
well,
okay,
you have to go that far.
Well, that's true though. Like those are both really good teams, and we did it with like our ensemble cast versus like one really star player.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So Shawshank and Forest have a similar, feel. Like they're kind of period pieces. Pulp Fiction's a very like contemporary. It's it's basically taking place in essentially the 90s. Like it's modern. It's current.
Yeah.
Why?
70s music.
Some of it's 70s music. Yeah. Why did you put Shawshank over Forest though? I just want you to dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah, like I said, like in terms, if you look at any critique now, right, Shawshank is number 1 for the AFI, right?
Okay.
Like, it's the best movie ever made. Or
no. Yeah, it would maybe within recent, because they still have Citizen Kane as number 1, and Sight and Sound put Vertigo as number 1, right? So it wouldn't be their top 100.
Yeah, I think in the last like 30 years or something like that, whatever lists they have, right? And I think, like I was saying, I think it's a 100% ensemble piece that not only Morgan Freeman killed it. Tim Robbins, like, I'm surprised like he didn't get nominated for any kind of acting. He killed it. Where you have that juxtaposition in which he even says it.
On the outside, I was an honest man, straight as an arrow. I had to come to prison to be a crook. There's
even things that you can go above and beyond if you want. You can make your own fan fiction with this film, in which like it's out there too, like all the little theories that he did kill his wife, right? And he was planning his escape from the beginning, and he was making sure manipulating everything. And if you go in through that rabbit hole and you watch the movie, it's a totally different experience than rewatching it. And I think some of the drama that's put into place and what most likely prison life was like for people back then, especially when you're dealing with, you know, the group of the sisters, and then the group of how, you know, that was the one thing I was surprised, because this film was 60s, right? Like to timeline. Like 60s.
Yeah, that's kind of, well, it's like I think late 50s, early 60s when he goes to jail in that kind of time frame, and then he's there what, 30 years or something?
20, 25, 20 or
20,
something
okay.
like that. But yeah, like and it was like, to me, like Frank Darabont did an amazing job as a director.
Not bad for a first feature, eh?
Yeah. Like,
This is his first feature film. Fucking asshole.
But yeah, like even the other ones he's done, like The Green Mile, The Mist, right? Like he does really well with Stephen King adaptations.
So just that quick sidebar, just because I got some interesting notes in each one of these films. So he gave Stephen King $5,000 to get the rights to do Shawshank Redemption. Stephen King never cashed the check, and then gave it actually back to him, to Frank, and said, with a note that said, in case you ever need bail money, love, Steve. And like, that's what he gave back to him. And this is a film that made $75 million on a $25 million budget. So like Stephen King was totally within his rights to not only cash that check, but like exercise some of the other options around it. And he was just like, nah, it's cool. Like, that's fucking class, man. That's fucking super classy.
Yes, I agree. But like, like, I don't know what you want me to say. You didn't get, like, I'm pretty sure he's like, I don't really need the fucking $5,000.
That's also true.
He's like, I'll take a shit and write a book during that time.
I mean, I guess it depends on how bad his cocaine habit was, like which period of Stephen King's life we're talking. Because there was a while, I'm sure, that $5,000 could have been very useful.
No, he would have been clean and narrow by this time. But yeah, like, and I think in terms of like, even now, like all three films are great to watch, but I think Pulp Fiction has aged a bit in terms of its pulp character references and everything like that. Same with Forest, that Shawshank, even if you watch it now, it's aged super well.
Sure. Okay.
Now tell me why, you know, Quentin Tarantino is not a good director and his films suck.
So I'm not going to answer that question. So let's do a bit of head-to-head here. Okay, so Forrest Gump was nominated for 13 Oscars and it won 6. So it won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Tom Hanks, Adapted Screenplay, Film Editing, and Visual Effects. Shawshank Redemption, 7 Oscar nods. It didn't win any. So that's kind of crazy. It didn't win any of its Oscar nominations. And Pulp Fiction was nominated for 6 Oscars, and it won Best Original Screenplay for obviously Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery. And yeah, that's it. So it only won 1 out of those. So, you know, Forrest Gump definitely went to the Oscars and fucking took it like a box of chocolate and fucking ate it all. No. So here's what I need to see out of a Best Picture, or what I try to, you know, find in a Best Picture. So first off, let's remember that the Academy's goal, like its actual mission statement, is advancing the arts and science of motion pictures. So when I look at it as Best Picture, what I want to see is that, first off, it has to have, like you said, all the ingredients, right? The script, the acting, the casting, the, you know, special effects, if it's going to have any, sound design, editing, all of that stuff. And I would argue that every single one of the films we're talking about has all that, because that's your fucking baseline, right? You know, Power of the Dog doesn't have good direction, doesn't deserve to be on that fucking list. Just wanted to, you know, poke that bear very quickly.
You can't wait for 2 weeks when we actually do this year's Oscars prediction.
Fucking hate that movie. And including like cinematography and stuff like that as well. So to answer your question from last week, when I talk about scope, what I'm actually talking about is like the cinematic experience. And so an example of this would be if you've ever seen Lawrence of Arabia. It's like those wide open shots of the desert, right? You know, any film that's got really big cinematic moments. So in this year's Oscars, just as an example, like something like what Villeneuve does, imagery wise, it's got to be big. It's got to have this big space to it.
Yeah, like I hear
Hold
what you're
on.
saying. In terms
Okay.
of Loris, but like if you're going to the audience, you might want to do something more recent, and I would probably say Avatar.
How more recent than the fucking Oscars that's in 3 weeks?
No, I'm talking about because you're saying Lawrence of Arabia. I'm saying
I have some other ones. You probably want to.
I was going to say Avatar.
Yeah, Avatar would work too. So Avatar actually has another component to it as well.
The technology side.
The technology side, which is the art, the science side of filmmaking as well. But the most important to me, and this is, and okay, I want you to get ready to hear what I'm about to say.
Not like this.
I'm waiting.
Because this is one place that my friend Quentin, to this date, I feel has always lacked enough of this next thing.
Okay, wait. Let me prepare myself for this.
So it's the emotion, it's the emotional hook or the emotional gravitas. Quentin Tarantino has yet to make a film. He's gotten close, I think, with like Shoshana in Inglourious Bastards, and then some of the stuff with Django and his wife in Django Unchained. But like there needs to be, and emotion doesn't always have to be happy or sad, but there has to be an emotional hook in a Best Picture. Now, again, all of these are subjective in one way because we only get to decide on the films that actually make it into the nomination process, right? So you can't look at all the films and go, well, that one's better. You're kind of given a pie, and then you need to try and, like you said, find all the ingredients in that one pie and go, which one of these slices is the best or whatever, right? So Quentin Tarantino still doesn't, again, you're not emotionally drawn in for the most part into a Quentin Tarantino film. They're highly no, like not
you got
really.
The Bride, like fucking like going.
It doesn't mean that there's no emotion, but I mean, okay. So I would say that like one of the biggest emotional moments for me in the Shawshank is when Brooks is out of jail and he can't do it, right? He's so institutionalized, he's super unhappy, and he, is penning that letter to the guys back in jail, and he's just like, I don't want to do this anymore, so I'm not going to. And he hangs himself. Like, that's one of those things where it's like, bang, like you automatically connect with that character. So in Pulp Fiction, there is definitely none of that. Like, again, you're not emotionally invested in any of these fucking characters, which is fine. It's a very entertaining film. It's very well shot. Go ahead.
I'd say in terms of all the characters, probably Buck, Bruce Willis's character, you are. Like, when
Again,
he had to walk and explain how, he shoved that watch.
He kept that watch up his ass. And then I kept that watch off his ass, of my ass, so that I could bring it to you. Again, I'm not talking that there's no emotion, but I'm talking like an emotional hook. So that's what I want to see in a Best Picture. So when I'm evaluating all of these things, I'm looking for that. And so they all had the basic ingredients. All the acting was good. They all have interesting stories. So Pulp Fiction is off the table right away because it's not grandiose. It's not big enough for me. It's not cinematic enough for me. Go ahead.
No, okay, we'll get rid of Pulp. Now you use the example of Shawshank. What was it for Forest? Because you picked Forest.
Okay, so I'm going to get to that. So Pulp Fiction's off the table because it's not cinematic enough for me, and it doesn't have the emotional hook. So it basically like loses in two of those categories. So this one's actually more complicated for me. And it was actually, again, on the rewatch, I thought that Forrest Gump was going to walk away with this. And at the end, I had to like really, really just sit and make my final decision, which is still Forrest Gump. So Forrest Gump wins because of the technological advancement, like all the green screen, because we forget. It's sort of like Jurassic Park. You watch Jurassic Park now, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, dinosaurs. I mean, like, fucking how hard is that to do? Except it was insanely hard to do when they did Jurassic Park. The green screen work that they did in Forrest Gump, both with Lieutenant Dan's legs and all, like the fact that all those historical moments, right? Like putting Forrest in them and stuff like that was insane. Like the level of fucking technological achievement that is achieved there. And the cinematic scope of Forrest Gump. Emotionally, it's a bit superficial. Like you're never like, again, the reason I used the quote I did at the beginning of the show, like that is one of the places where I did feel like you connect They're like, I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is. Like, that's a very intense moment. But I think Shawshank had a better moment than that. But it doesn't have the technological advancements, and it doesn't have the scope. Like Forrest Gump is, again, like, especially like when he like, because like he's in Vietnam and then he's like running across America, like those skyline, like it's a beautiful film to watch. And again, you know, as much as the acting is very, very good in all of these films and in Shawshank with all, like, everybody, again, you've got Tim Robbins, Morgan Freeman, James Whitmore, who played Brooks, who got a Genie Award, which is a Canadian Screen Award now, for Here to Life. Forrest Gump, remember, Tom Hanks becomes Forrest Gump. Like, none of these, like, Morgan Freeman's not having to do like an accent, nothing like that. Either is Tim Robbins. Like, Forrest Gump is not a real person. He like created that character. That is fucking amazing.
They invited me and the ping pong team to visit the White House, so I went again.
Yeah, so that's kind of like where I am with those two things.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, especially with Gump in terms of technology, and I think nowadays, and it could just be in terms of the circles that I'm in, but I would say in terms of Robert Zemeckis itself, like I don't think, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, that many people, you know, hail him for all the technological stuff he does in terms of films. Even
Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Like, we forget like how groundbreaking that was at the time.
Or even the motion capture stuff he's done with, you know, the Polar Express and Beowulf and A Christmas Carol, right?
That's
Where
right.
using that motion capture now, you know, you can see, like, you know, since it's out, like you'll have like a Matt Reeves, you know, Planet of the Apes films in which, you know, the apes look 100% real and it's all motion cap, but without the work that, you know, Zemeckis was doing almost 20 years ago, like that technology would never have advanced, right?
That's right. So, but you're
say it again.
Okay.
Just say it. I'm right. I just like saying it. I don't hear it enough at home. Just
You're right. And it's interesting because the whole that cinematic experience, Frank Darabont, I don't know how you actually say it.
Darabont.
Yeah. So he actually wanted it more cinematic, and it was Roger Deakins, who's a fucking legend cinematographer, was like, no, because he wanted that claustrophobic feel. And it works. Like, I get it. But it's one of the things that takes it out of my running as a truly big, like a true competitor for Forrest Gump. I mean, I'm not suggesting I know more about fucking cinematography than fucking Roger Deakins, I'll tell you. Like, so listen to this. So this is the list I have for Roger Deakins films: Fargo, Kundun, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, No Country for Old Men, The Reader, True Grit, Skyfall, Prisoners, Unbroken, Sicario, Blade Runner 2029, and 1973. And the reason that list is so long is not just because I like those films. Every single one of those fucking movies was nominated for a fucking Oscar in cinematography. Like, you look at this guy's list, and it's like every year he'll do like one or two movies, and every year like one of them basically ends up on a fucking Oscar list. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I'll say.
And he works with Villeneuve a lot, and Villeneuve's from Quebec, which is sort of part of Canada.
Oh, it's a CANCAN moment. I'm making it a thing. It's a CANCAN.
With my poutine and my maple syrup. Anyway.
But yeah, like, and that's one of the things I do like about Shawshank, because it is 100% claustrophobic, right? Like from beginning, and but that's the thing, like it's beginning to end. Like that is my one criticism of it, is like when you had, like, spoilers, like this movie's fucking old, but once you had the escape and he was outside of the bars, you should have been exactly. Yeah. He wasn't caught anymore, and that was like when you look at the poster as well, right, where you have him with his shirt like blowing in the wind in the rain, like that,
like a Michael Jackson video in the early 90s or whatever, or in the early 2000s.
Even there, like, you know, you could have had that in there instead of him just like throwing off his clothes, like all happy. But it still was like a medium close-up shot. You never saw like him, like even the end scene where like they go to that small fucking place in Mexico, and it's literally just looks like they're on an island and they're in clothes.
Yeah, again,
too,
that
right?
that's a place where you could have pulled the camera. I don't know why I'm pulling back from my microphone. Pulled the cameras back because, like you said, like so, because then what you do is you get that contrast, right? We've gone from this world that's this big, and then all of a sudden it's like that's so free. It becomes this is freedom. Freedom is the expanse. Freedom is hot tubs at Parliament Hill and a bouncy castle. That's what freedom is.
Yeah, but it also that it could be juxtaposed as well, that even in the outside world they have to be enclosed, right? They like technically that island, like that ocean is their walls now. They're still,
I'll take ocean wall versus fucking prison walls any day.
I'm just saying, you know, because I picked Shawshank and I want to be like, fuck, I'm cutting it down now. But
Like I said, they're both, and so this is interesting. So, you know, I'm looking at the Rotten Tomato score. Let's talk audience, right? So Forrest has got a 95, Shawshank has a 98, and Pulp Fiction has a 96. All like the audiences love these fucking movies. Critics wise, Forrest Gump 70, Shawshank 91, and Pulp Fiction 92. So the critics, again, they like the two other films, but the audience all like them kind of relatively the same. And you're a Spielberg guy, so I want to know if you agree with this statement. Forrest Gump has a Spielberg feel to it to me. It feels like almost like the fantasy world that Spielberg makes, like his style. And I don't mean like Jaws. I mean like more like Jurassic Park and stuff like that. Like the bigness that Spielberg does very well with a large, big picture. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but I wouldn't say, like, to me it doesn't really have a Spielberg feel. Since you're putting me on the spot, like,
hey, you did it to me last week, and you
tried to
fucking pull the carpet out of me, my magic Tarantino carpet out. So fuck you. Make you go after one of your directors.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Spielberg. I would say maybe. And this is gonna sound weird, but I would say maybe like an Oliver Stone. Like this has like a JFK kind of feel to it, right? Where
it's not political enough though. It's like it's
but you're reworking history kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean Oliver Stone, especially his like earlier work, is a lot more like, I don't want to use the word gritty, but like violent. I don't know, it's got more of an edge to it. Yeah, like Oliver Stone, in my opinion, doesn't really do fluff. Like this is fluffy. It's cotton candy. Man.
Wait, didn't he do an interview on Showtime with Putin? Doesn't he have a Putin case?
Yeah. He has a whole thing about the Ukraine. I don't want to get banned in Russia or the Ukraine, so I'm not even gonna fucking walk there. I'll make fun of our own freedom people here. So can I just actually talk about something in Pulp Fiction that I think it's very tragic that happened. So it was edited by Sally Menke, which, by the way, the one thing that, so Forrest Gump won the editing award. I'm pretty sure Pulp Fiction should have watched that. The transitions, there's cross-cutting, there's nonlinear format, like there's dissolves, like it's a beautiful, it's like a fucking masterpiece in fucking editing.
There's fade to blacks. There's
like everything.
There's rain.
Yeah, like I think Pulp Fiction should have won the editing award over Forrest Gump. So, and I'm very comfortable having that conversation. And so it was edited by Sally Menke, who did Reservoir Dogs. She did Four Rooms, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill 1 and 2, Death Proof, and Inglourious Basterds. She was Quentin's editor. And actually, she first, applied for the job when he was doing Reservoir Dogs because she was willing to work like kind of cheap. And she, first off, she got the call that she got the job while hiking in Banff, Alberta. So another CANCAN moment. But the tragic part is, so if you notice, I stopped at Inglourious Basterds, right? And you're like, oh, well, so what happened? Well, unfortunately, she died in 2010 while hiking with her dog in just in Los Angeles or whatever of heat exhaustion. And they found her body like later that day, like kind of like, at the bottom of a ravine or whatever. And it's just a very tragic thing. And Django was, kind of dedicated to her and stuff like that. And yeah, like her and Quentin Tarantino had a great working relationship. I would assume the same way that I can't remember the editor's name, but Martin Scorsese has worked with the same editor, female editor as well, forever. And that's why at the beginning of the show, the removing of the editor from the live broadcast is such bullshit. Like all the other categories I don't think should be taken out either, but you don't have a movie without editing. And especially if you're working with someone like Quentin Tarantino who still shoots on fucking film. Like you have to fucking transpose all that on the slides and then fucking edit it together. And like your movie is not a movie without fucking editing. So fuck you, Academy. Fuck you.
What other ones did they take out other than editing?
They took out editing. I think they took out all the music stuff. So like score, original song. They did all the short categories.
So they're not going to do like song performances like they've.
I'm not sure. I had a whole list of them. The editing really stuck out because it's like.
Did they take out costume design?
They took out hair and makeup. I'm not sure about costume design. But again, like all of those are important. Like making a movie, making a film is a collaborative process. But at editing, like if you're taking out editing, you might as well take out fucking best director. You might as well take out fucking lead actor because it is a fundamental component. And I'm really
just combine lead actors and lead actress and make it one.
Sure, whatever.
Like, if I know this is your soapbox, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate. I'm gonna go on my little soapbox here. I think this is really kind of where our culture is right now, where you're constantly listening at the criticism, right? Everybody's constantly criticizing how long this shit is. Like to me, the Oscars, like the Academy, like I don't really watch it anymore. And it was once they started playing that fucking orchestra when people who's dedicated their work are doing their speeches and they start playing the orchestra saying it's too long because it was all about like narrowing it down, like they had to be under time. And I think that's the same thing too, right? Like I think too many people, especially like network executives and whoever is producing it, is constantly hearing how it's too long and too boring. So they need to edit it out and they need to cut it down. And it's going to get to the point where I think Seth Rogen, who's Canadian, pretty much just said like casual viewers, nobody gives a shit about the Oscars.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Once they start taking everything away, all this criticism, it literally kind of a cancel culture thing in terms of themselves, or they're canceling themselves because it's like, you know, the weekend.
Well, who's your audience? Like who? And again, we can talk about this a bit in our after show component or whatever. Actually, let's do that. Let's have a little bit conversation after. So yeah, I think Forrest Gump deserved to win. I think it was a tough race, definitely with Shawshank. Pulp Fiction, as far as I'm concerned, didn't have the stuff to be Best Picture, but the fact that it basically dominated the Indie Spirit Awards. It won 5 Indie Spirit Awards. Got nominated for 5 and it won 4 of them. It won Indie Feature, Director. Jackson won for his lead, and it won Screenplay. And the example I would give is Zola is also up for, because the Indie Spirits Awards haven't happened, Feature, Director, Female Lead, Cinematography, and Editing. So it's in the same vein as Pulp Fiction. And as I said last week, as much as I like Zola, I don't think Zola has the stones to be in the Best Picture category. But like I said last week, Indie Spirit, I hope it rocks that place because it is a fantastic independent piece of cinema.
And that is our wrap for the day. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. If you want to get a hold of us, reach us at the www.howdyoulikethatmovie.com.
How's the voting done? Do you know anything about this?
Yeah, it's 100% hashtag 100% on Twitter.
Wait. Twitter is literally the way they're tabulating the votes.
The fan favorite, yeah. So the fact that
You know how easy it is to game that, especially if you have a radical fan base? Like,
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I hope to God it fucking ends up being.
I hope Taylor Swift wins.
Well, she wasn't in the movie.
But no, I don't mean a movie with Taylor Swift. I mean Taylor Swift, the musical artist, wins the fan favorite of movie.
Yeah, it has to be a movie.
Production by Rod Shaver, Vader Monkey Productions.